Alright, welcome back to Shooting It Straight. The evidence is in. Today we're going to look at evidence of what really happens in private citizen self-defense of shooting events and what does not happen, which will probably shock many concealed carriers despite the fact that I have stated these facts before in my previous videos. Now the evidence that I'm going to speak of today is documented and comes directly from approximately 40,000 videos from cell phones, fixed CCTV cameras, and police body and dash cams, all of which have been previously reviewed and examined and published by one source or another. Now there's no better trainer for defensive shooting techniques today than real-life encounters captured on video. Almost all of the information I'm putting out here today comes from the channel Active Self-Protection. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that channel. It's wildly popular, and understandably so. So, you know, you can go there and see the evidence for yourself. Now, I ask you to watch this video all the way to the end because I have an important point to make in it. But until then, let's get into what the video evidence shows and what it does not show. Okay? I'll make sure I've got my water. Okay. This is the evidence that it does show. The majority of the concealed carrier defensive gunfights normally last less than 5 seconds. Now keep in mind that the first second of that 5 seconds is just pure threat recognition and reaction time. It also shows that the vast majority of both the defenders and the offenders, in other words, the concealed carrier and the attacker, use some sort of a bladed stance during the altercation, and not the exclusively trained isosceles stance. It appears that a more protective bladed stance is our natural instinctive reaction to a perceived deadly threat. Now, you've heard me say that plenty of times before. This proves it. Okay? Keep in mind that we are focusing on private citizen self-defense cases, not law enforcement. The video today is for private citizens. It's common to see cops use an isosceles stance because they're now trained that way, unfortunately. We used to didn't be trained that way. We used to be trained in a bladed position, but they've changed that. But then again, they have ballistic vests on to protect their vital areas. Private citizens generally do not. All right, what else does it show? Well, it shows that the majority of lethal force encounters occur inside of a 5-yard distance, or about inside of 15 feet away. The defender and the attacker is usually somewhere inside of 15 feet from each other when the attack goes down. Many other private sector studies show this also. Now, the FBI's 7-yard distance thing that we've all heard about, that is the average distance between the suspect and the police officer. Those are for law enforcement shootings, not private citizen shootings. For private citizen shootings, it's closer than that 7 yards because the mission is different. It also shows that the first person to land an effective shot on target overwhelmingly wins the gunfight. So it is vitally important for you to be the first one to land an effective hit on target. And with very rare exceptions, once shots are fired or returned by the defender, the offender or the attacker and all of his accomplices will disengage and run away. They don't want no part of that. That's proven too in these 40,000 videos. Now the evidence from those 40,000 videos also show us what does not happen in private citizen gunfights. No video shows the defender opting to use his defensive knife instead of his concealed weapon, his concealed gun. Which begs the question, why bother to carry a defensive knife if you're always going to go to your gun first, which you should? No evidence that that's ever been used as a primary weapon. There's also no video that shows a concealed carrier ever using a backup gun. In fact, only one badge cam video shows a police officer using a backup gun. No video shows any concealed carrier ever having to perform a reload. Never having to perform a reload. Remember, most gunfights are over in less than 5 seconds, minus the 1 second or maybe 1.5 seconds for your recognition and reaction time. It's pretty unlikely you'll empty a magazine and land any accurate shots on target within that time. There's also no video that shows a concealed carrier ever having to clear a malfunction by performing a reload. That's never been seen. Not saying it hasn't happened, saying that within these 40,000 videos there is none of that. No video shows any defender having to switch the gun from the strong hand to the weak hand due to an injury. There's only one video, and that shows a law enforcement officer doing that. That's it. They don't have any videos of having to switch to the weak hand, or support hand as some call it. Now along those same lines, no video shows anyone ever being forced to work the gun with only one hand, other than pulling the trigger, of course. But other than pulling the trigger, no video shows anybody ever having to work the gun with one hand, such as having to, rack the slide by raking the front sight off of your belt or raking the front sight off of your heel of your shoe and all that tactical stuff. It just doesn't happen. And no video shows a defendant unable to fire his gun due to it being out of battery because of muzzle smother, or in other words, because it's made contact against the attacker's body. So this negates the hype about the extended lights extending past the muzzle to be used as a standoff device, since out of those 40,000 videos, that's never been done. All right, now, so that's what these thousands of videos are showing us. Now, of course, just because it is not seen on a video does not necessarily mean that it hasn't happened, that it doesn't happen, or that it won't happen. It does, however, show us that certain occurrences are extremely rare, if it even exists at all. An example? Well, that would be, although none of the 40,000 videos show a concealed carrier ever having to perform a so-called emergency reload, which is a combat reload, but it's for whatever reason been renamed to an emergency reload, it does not mean that that has never happened, and it does not mean that it will never happen. So, as I've said before, no two deadly force events are ever exactly the same. They're all different, at least slightly. Now, the evidence shows that things such as performing reloads, being forced to shoot with our support hand, resorting to a backup gun, using a defensive knife instead of your gun, and things of that nature is extraordinarily rare and unlikely to happen. Again, that doesn't mean it can't happen. But my point is that there's a lesson we can learn from these facts. And that lesson is this: we need to concentrate much more on the techniques that the evidence shows us is most likely to happen in such an event than those other techniques that the evidence shows us are much less likely to happen. Now, however, I'm not trying to suggest that you stop practicing techniques such as reloads, for example. I'm only suggesting that we should be spending the vast majority of our practices and training on the basic fundamentals, such as our bladed draw stroke, our combat accuracy, not pinpoint, but combat accuracy, our point shooting, our flash sight picture shooting, clearing common malfunctions, using cover, and things of that nature. Those things are things that we are much more likely to use in a real gunfight, and that's what we need to concentrate on practicing. More than the other stuff, I mean. You know, it's okay to practice magazine reloads, shooting 3x5 index cards, shooting with your support hand, practicing trigger control and things of that nature. What I'm saying is just don't let those kinds of practices take up a large portion of your time, since the evidence shows that these things are highly unlikely to be needed skills in a gunfight. I mean, it kind of makes sense. All right, that's all on this one, fellas. Thanks again for watching. I hope I provided some good info for you to use in your quest to become a better prepared concealed carrier. I'm Antonius, and I'm shooting it straight to you. Ciao.